dodging without touching anybody, and no one is talking to him, no one will look at him, no one's giving him the time of day at all, until somebody passes directly through him. The ghost passes directly through him. And at this point, Stephen goes, whoa, this hotel really is haunted. Awesome. So he starts taking notes, keeps drinking obviously, starts taking notes, and he's getting a little frustrated that nobody's giving him the time of day in here. So he actually decides he's going to go find his room. But he doesn't remember his room number. And he doesn't have the keys because he gave it to Tabitha to go up and find their room. So what does he do? Hops in that elevator, goes to the 4th floor, where he sees 2 little girls that are really creepy and want to play with him forever and ever, right? Actually not true. He sees a little boy in a knickers and a white cap, and a girl in a white pinafore dress. Now what they're doing is they're playing jacks, they're kicking a ball around on the 4th floor, they're running up and down the hallways, but they're actually not looking at him or talking to him at all either. Now, are there any paranormal interests in the room here? Does anybody like that stuff? Do you know what those are called? Kind of haunting? Correct. A residual haunting. So a residual haunting is something that happens every year, and it's happened so many years that it's embedded in the memory of the rock underneath us, which I'll tell you about at the end if you have any questions about that. So it happens every year, and so it's going to keep happening every year because we have a memory of it. That's called a residual haunting. So every year, around the 31st of October, not necessarily the 31st, but around then, we will have the McGregor Ball pop up out of thin air. There will be music, there will be dancing, there will be people. They will not notice you, they will not recognize you, and eventually they will just disappear. That's what a residual haunting is. So that happens around the 31st. We also do have the real McGregor Ball, which happens on the 31st every single year. So that's a pretty cool thing, which he saw. So he's upstairs, and he finally makes his way down to room 217, where he knocks on the door. And Tabitha opens the door. And she goes, Stephen, thank you so much for putting our clothes away. And he's a little confused by this, right? Because he says, I've been in the bar, I've been in the McGregor room, I've been to every floor, but I don't have any room keys, and you're the only one that's been in the room. So they think maybe the maids put their clothes away before they left, right? And Tabitha goes back to bed, and Stephen walks into the bathroom where he sees what? What's it in the movie? Creepy green lady? Yeah. It's actually not a creepy green lady. It's going to be our head chambermaid, and her name is Mrs. Wilson. Now he actually has a conversation with Mrs. Wilson, and Mrs. Wilson likes him. So she put his clothes away. That's what Stephen deduced. He was like, oh, Mrs. Wilson likes me, so she put my clothes away. Now I did forget to tell you the story about Mrs. Wilson, which I'm going to have to back up a little bit, unfortunately. But that's okay. So Mrs. Wilson is our head chambermaid, and in Colorado, we have very huge spring storms. And when spring storms come up here, they knock out our electricity. So one of the first few seasons we were open, we had a huge spring storm knock out our electricity. And if I was Mrs. Wilson, let's say I'm Mrs. Wilson, I have to go around and light all of the gas lamps so we get light, correct? So what I'm going to go do, since I'm the head chambermaid, is I'm going to go to room 217 first because it's the presidential suite, correct? And when I get up there, I light that gas lamp, and there's a huge explosion. 4 stories above that second pillar blow up because we have all this pent-up gas above her. It's all sitting up there. Now luckily, she was just forced through the floor, landed in that area right over there, and broke both her ankles. That's the only thing that happened to her, luckily. However, we did find lumber from the hotel way over there on that ridge where you can see that house way on the other side, below Mount Pleasant. So that's how big of an explosion this was. Now this is also a way to show how Mr. Nice Mr. Stanley is.